Why don't we start it off by talking about Josh Downs?
Mm.
Nate, his given cost right now is a mid 24 second and a late 24 second. I'll preface this. I won't say it every time we talk about a player. Do you believe the cost for this player is higher, lower, or accurate? Tell me why. And if it's different, tell me why as well.
Yeah, I think this is pretty spot on because, when there's a player that you like and you just can't get him for a second round pick, the next step is 2 seconds. And then the step after that is a late first. Josh Downs is not worth a late first at this point. He's
Okay.
not producing enough, though he is getting some production. And we're going to talk about that. I don't believe enough in that situation to have him be worth a late first, but 2 seconds. I like that. I like that because Josh Downs, we were all on Josh Downs before the draft. We loved him. I think most of us did around here. We were all pretty high on Josh Downs. No worries about his talent. He went to a situation that he has already, from week one, really has taken a starting role. I mean, he started for the Colts this year, week one. So a guy that not only we believe in the talent, but has shown the talent, has got on the field right away, has been a safety blanket and a good option for both Anthony Richardson, who's now out for the season, and Gardner Minshew, who's going to be starting the rest of the season. And I believe that Gardner Minshew can probably support Josh Downs and Michael Pittman Jr. because that is certainly the hierarchy there with the Colts offense. Those two wide receivers are the guys getting all the targets. One of the reasons I don't want to pay more than this for Josh Downs right now is because he's got a low yards per catch. He's only got 9.9 yards per catch. His ADOT is 6.8. He's being used very close to the line of scrimmage. And we kind of expected that. Knowing Josh Downs, he was a slot receiver, does a lot of work in the first 10 yards of the field off the line of scrimmage. And we're seeing that go into the NFL. I love that. And as the volume goes up, you have a lot of potential for fantasy points. But until the volume goes up, which I don't really think it's going to with how the Colts team is playing right now, and Michael Pittman Jr. being there, he is capped. But I do like the 2 seconds. I think that works out quite well. He's currently sixth most receiving yards right now behind Jordan Addison, third most receptions of rookie wide receivers. Love the early talent, love the early production. About 2 seconds.
So I'm going to agree with you. And I think this is accurate as well. And looking through DLF's Trade Finder, which is a great tool to use just to really kind of get a grasp on what's going on right now. I've seen several trades that had this almost exact value or very, very similar. And look, like you said, now's the time to buy with Anthony Richardson going up. People are going to panic because, yeah, Anthony Richardson's not started, but there's a reason to believe that Pittman could be better with a guy like Gardner Minshew, who's not going to be the threat to run. All he could scramble and move around in the pocket, but he's not a runner like Anthony Richardson. The only other player that I would consider acquiring at a cost like this is a guy like Christian Kirk if I'm competing. Nate, so the next guy we want to talk about, I can't say that the Dynasty Rewind as a whole has been a fan of this player. So, he's the starter now. Damian Harris also has a neck. Was it a neck sprain? I believe they called
Yes.
it. But we're actually talking about James Cook right now, and his value is that of a late 24 first and a 25 second. Nate, this is the price you have to pay when you want to get a starting running back, a starting NFL running back. Higher, lower. What do you got for me?
Yeah, I'm a little bit lower than this on James Cook. Just with them bringing in possibly Fournette, James Cook has done well to be productive at times for the Bills, but really, I don't think we're getting anything out of James Cook that we didn't get out of Devin Singletary. We saw what the Bills did with Devin Singletary. They didn't take Devin Singletary, put him on a platform and say, hey, this is our lead back. Nope, they brought in other competition. They let Josh Allen, take over a lot of the runs in the red zone. I think we're going to see, somewhat similar usage and production out of James Cook. And that's not bad. Devin Singletary was very productive for many years.
Yeah.
Mike, I know you rostered a lot of Devin Singletary. It's not a bad thing to have James Cook on your team. He's going to be productive. I just don't think he's going to give you a lot of 20-plus point games. But he's going to give you a pretty decent floor of 10 to 15 points a lot of weeks, especially as long as the Bills' offense does well. But if the Bills' offense doesn't do too well, I don't think James Cook is going to, break the mold and be someone special for that team. He's kind of just a part of that offense at this point. Other running backs I would rather acquire. If I'm going to spend a first, maybe a first and a second, I would look at Brian Robinson, valued pretty similar to James Cook. And I feel a lot more confident about Brian Robinson's role with the Commanders. He is obviously their lead back. He is obviously going to get a lot of the workload in that offense when they're not playing from behind. James Cook, I don't feel as he's as an important piece to that offense as, I would want to commit a first and a second to.
Nate, I gotta say, everyone, James Cook came in and he's going to be this prolific receiving back. Remember, we heard that, narrative. James Cook on the season, 14 catches for 140 yards, whereas Brian Robinson Jr., the guy who can't catch,
Yeah.
11 catches for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. James Cook has 0. I like this a lot. Brian Robinson also 302 yards on the ground. So James Cook a little bit more right now, 363. But I honestly, I would pay even less, and I would take a guy like Jerome Ford right now over James Cook. He has the same amount of 100-yard rushing games this year that James Cook does, and he hasn't been the starter as long. So my value is obviously lower. If I'm
Mhm.
going to move a first, I want some better production to come back on my roster. I really don't trust Bills running backs. It's going to be never Bills running backs, just like for how long it was never Patriots running backs, which it still is never Patriots running backs again. I mean, I would do just a second for him if I really want him, or a second and a third. I would do this. But I think for that price, another guy I'd rather go off after is DeAndre Swift, who's currently running back 7. He's starting to get some good receiving work as well. The Eagles didn't run the ball very much. They looked terrible in the game against the Jets. Their first loss ever to the Jets, of course, is because I
Yeah.
was in the stadium that they lost to the
Way to go,
Jets.
Mike.
Zach Wilson. But he's getting some good receiving work. And is he still? Yes, still running back 7. And he does have a receiving touchdown, which James Cook does not. So let's move on and let's talk about Cooper Kupp. So his given cost right now, Nate, is a late 24 first and a late 24 second. We're talking late picks here. Higher, lower, accurate, maybe?
Yeah, I think this is rather accurate. Late picks, if this was like a mid first and a mid second, I would not be as interested. But for a late first and a late second, which is what you're expecting because you're only trading for Cooper Kupp if you're a contending team. And right now, Cooper Kupp, even with Puka Nakua there, he's still going to put up that 20-point production every single week, it looks like. Puka's playing the Robert Woods role. Cooper Kupp's playing the Cooper Kupp role still. So that production is still there. I still think we're going to get another, two or so years out of Cooper Kupp with good production. So I don't mind spending a first on Cooper Kupp. I don't mind adding a second on it. As long as these are late picks and you're a contending team, and this is what pushes you to the edge to be one of the top teams in the league, I'm fine with this because I think you're getting really good production this season. You're getting good production moving forward for another season or two. And I'm not scared of Brian, Puka Nakua taking targets. We've seen them work together already. I can't believe I just said I'm not scared of Puka Nakua taking targets. Like, who would have even thought that was a conversation,
Yeah.
a month ago even. I'm okay with Cooper Kupp here. If we're looking for someone a little bit younger, might not give us quite as much production. But Brandon Ayuk is another guy I like for around this price that you might be able to go acquire right now. I think Brandon Ayuk is one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL right now. And with the way Brock Purdy is playing and the way that San Francisco 49ers offense is moving, Brandon Ayuk's, the production's coming, and we're already seeing the flashes of it in big ways. And that production is going to be more consistent, and it's going to be really good, I think, soon. So Brandon Ayuk is a guy I want to target right now, and I think you get him for similar cost to what
Yeah.
you can get for Cooper Kupp.
For me, I think this is accurate. Look, this is what you want to pay for an aging elite wide receiver, but in 2 games, no signs of rust. Like I said, 15 catches, 266 yards, and a touchdown. He's a league winner at this point. He's going to help you win your league if you're a contending team. Let's talk about the unicorn himself, Kyle Pitts. When I was working in the shop, I would tell people, look, I'll sell you a Michelin or Goodyear all you want, or I can get you better value for less price because you're not paying for the name. So, Nate, are you going to pay for the name of Kyle Pitts? I have some fun Kyle Pitts stats then. He
Ooh.
is costing a mid-24 first and a 2025 second round pick. Nate,
Man, it's accurate. I think this is an accurate cost,
I
but
agree.
do I want to pay it right now? I love Kyle Pitts. I am still in on his future. He's so young still, 23 years old, on the dot, basically. And so we got plenty of time for Kyle Pitts to produce and give us elite production. And unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to get that consistently as long as Arthur Smith and or Desmond Ridder is there. That has to change at some point. I still like Kyle Pitts for a rebuilding team, for a team that has a different timeline. But I think if you're a contender, this is not the guy you go after right now. He has had 10 plus points in the last 2 games, but I'm not about to start trusting Kyle Pitts and the Falcons just after 2 games. I've seen enough this year, I've seen enough last year to know that I can't trust them. Kyle Pitts definitely coming off the injury and looking slow as well. And that's been part of the reason that he's had such a slow ramp up into the season. You can tell looking at him that he's not able to make the cuts that he used to. I think he's still coming back from his injury. I'm not worried about that long term, but it's still definitely affecting this season. Kyle Pitts for a mid first and a 25 second round. I like how these are staggered here. I think if you are going after a tight end and you have a long term timeline, this is a decent price to pay because I think this price will go up by the end of the season, if certainly by next season.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, he's still super young. The situation will change. His talent, really shouldn't unless he has more injuries. Look, the Falcons they don't care about your fantasy football team. Maybe they should because it might help them win more games. But Kyle Pitts, decent price here, but not what I'm paying if I'm contending. And unfortunately, I don't really want to trade for many tight ends in this landscape. Like there's not many other options if you need a tight end. Like I either want to pay up for Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta. I'm like, sell the farm for those guys, or just grab a bunch of guys and stream tight end at this
Yeah,
point.
it's brutal, man. And for me, it's accurate, but it should be lower. Just want to throw out that caveat. We've seen the flashes. We haven't seen what's been advertised. When is Atlanta going to be a complete offense? And look, here is some fun Kyle Pitts facts for you guys. He has 4 career touchdowns in 3 years. One of them is this year, and he has 3 career 100-yard receiving games. All of them were as a rookie in 2021.
Pre Arthur Smith.
Yeah, so it's not looking good. Plus, they have the world's greatest wide receiver there in Drakeland. I'm okay with paying the first, not the additional pick. Then I won't make the
Yeah.
trade. That's fine because at this time, I would rather, if I'm going to invest that in a tight end, give me guys Sam Laporta. He's a rookie. He's already looking great. He's down to tight end 2 now. Damn you, Travis Kelce. TJ Hawkinson. I would even invest in Dallas Goedert. Goddard has been starting slow. Might be a little bit cheaper than this value right now, but we've seen what he can do. Philly's offense is better than Atlanta's. Let's move on. You should have bought him when I told you to, because now Nico Collins is costing you a mid-24 first-round pick. Who'd have thunk it? Nate, what are you doing here? Higher, lower?
Ooh, mid-24 first. Mike, I can't do it. I like the 2024 class at the wide receiver position too much to give up a mid-2024 first, but I'm going to do this for a late 2024 first, and I'm not upset about it because I like Nico Collins. I like what he's showing. I like a young wide receiver who's 6'4", by the way. Look, we're getting some big guys back in the top tier of wide receivers. Nico Collins tied with Deebo Samuel for the most yards after the catch in the league per reception. Just
Insane.
at 6'4", creating so many yards after the catch. Really impressive. He's been doing it consistently throughout this season. So I love what we're seeing here. The Texans are an improving team. CJ Stroud, a young quarterback that I'm excited to have what is currently the wide receiver 1 for. If I have the wide receiver 1 for CJ Stroud over the next 3-4 years, I'm going to get a very productive wide receiver. And right now, Nico Collins looks like that. So I'm willing to pay a late 24 first for Nico Collins. Not quite a mid-2024 first. The situation is not consistent enough for me to pay up for the mid-24 first at this point. The Texans offense still young, still improving. They're not consistent. We've seen that with Nico Collins. He has had 2 games below 10 points this season. So he's not, at that upper tier where he's giving you consistent 15, 20 points a game. So until we get to that point, not quite ready to throw around a mid-2024 first, but more than happy to throw around a 2024 late first. Maybe if you need to throw an add-in player like Curtis Samuel, Tutu Atwell, Jeff Wilson, any one of the Ravens running backs, more than willing to throw in a player like that on top of that first and make that move happen.
Yeah, well, Nico Collins currently the wide receiver 11 on the season, averaging 17 fantasy points per game. I'm going to pay up. There's a possibility this is accurate for me, by the way. This might be the cheapest that you can get him for a while if this keeps up. By the way, Nico Collins already at a career high in yards and touchdowns for his career, 547 yards, 3 touchdowns, all that in 6 games. Third-year breakout incoming. We're seeing it happen right now. You should have bought him before the season. Like I told you too. Good rapport with CJ Stroud. Mechie hasn't done much. I didn't expect much right away. Still coming back, recovering from leukemia. Super glad he's back, by the way. Noah Brown, who they signed, has been injured. It's been all Nico and Robert Woods. And of course, Dalton Schultz looking good as well. Another buy low for me. Let's move on. What is the cost right now to acquire Breece Hall? The Jets have not been very good.
What's the cost to acquire Breece Hall, Mike? You're going to have to pay a lot, aren't you? And I just want to say, I came on this show a couple weeks ago, and I mentioned how I traded away CMC for Breece Hall, a 3rd round and a 4th round pick. and I think you clowned me, Mike. I think you clowned me later in the show.
What?
And
I
I
would.
just want to say, I was on a rebuilding team, not contending, so I had to get CMC off my roster. So timeline worked there, but that trade's not looking too bad now. It's a lateral move, and I got a 3rd round and a 4th round on top of it. Got to know what's coming. And I follow Jeff Mueller on Twitter. I want to mention him because he had this spot on from the offseason, looking at training reports and his injury recovery. Jeff, for months and months now, has targeted week 6 as a 100% week for Breece Hall. Not this, hey, Breece Hall is going to suck for the entire year coming off his ACL. Jeff called this. He deserves his props. He's one of my favorite injury analysts. He's a physical therapist on Twitter. Go follow Jeff Mueller. Really got to give him his props there because I bought Breece Hall watching that stuff, and look how it's working out. Buy Breece Hall low. Now we're getting to see the production already. And this is against stacked boxes. Breece Hall averaging 6.5 yards per carry, Mike. That is really, really impressive when you think about Aaron Rodgers is not in the backfield and it's Zach Wilson under center. And I mean, 8-man boxes, I'm used to Derrick Henry maybe putting up these numbers, not Breece Hall. So Breece Hall looking incredible right now. And if I can get him for Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, and a 1st, either one of those guys plus a 1st, that is an absolute steal.
Yeah.
But at this point, probably not going to happen. You have to pay 2 firsts for Breece Hall. You're probably going to have to throw something on top of that because Breece Hall is getting to that point where he's young, he's productive. He's going to be looked at pretty similar to how Jonathan Taylor was a year or 2 ago. He's going to be looked at pretty similar how Barkley was, CMC. This is one of those guys you got to pay up now. Like Mike, I'm sorry to steal from your notes, but he's already RB3 on Keep Trade Cut.
Yeah.
So he's already to that ceiling. You have to pay up for him. 2 firsts is the minimum you're going to have to pay for Breece Hall. If you can trade a running back plus a 1st and a 2nd, I think that's a great way to go about it. I hate to give up 2, 3, 4 draft picks for Breece Hall. Like to add a player in there, but it's going to cost you 2 firsts minimum, I think, value-wise.
You're going to need multiple firsts to move Breece Hall. It's that easy. It might be even more in a 1 quarterback league, or you're going to at least need a productive player, a wide receiver, running back, depending on what that team needs. Staggered first is what I always go for. What if you could try like Travis Etienne in a 2nd? I don't think anyone's going to bite for that now. Probably going to have to be Etienne in a 1st. But then again, you're also moving another productive running back. I would also move Tony Pollard or DeAndre Swift in a 1st for Breece Hall. Nate, we're going to move on to the Underdog Scrub Pick'em of the week. Saw you, my friend.
Yeah, so, every week we have our pick'em here, and we usually have to combine it, because you have to have 2 pick'ems to actually create the pick'em. We have been killing it, Mike. We started off the season 5-0, and we weren't wrong Thursday night with the Broncos-Chiefs game. Sean Payton was wrong.
Yes.
Because Sean Payton refuses to play Marvin Mims, who is, quite honestly, maybe his best receiver at this point. I mean, certainly top 3. He deserves starting snaps. Yet, for some reason, Marvin Mims is not on the field, and therefore our what we thought was very easy to hit, 18.5 receiving yards, did not happen. 0 receiving yards, Mike. Yeah, so you're 5-1. I'm 4-2. But moving on to this week, and we got Alvin Kamara and the Saints playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Alvin Kamara is the guy that we're going to be looking at today. Currently, the contest here is 52.5 rush yards. Higher or lower? What are you thinking here? 52.5 against the Jaguars.
Yeah,
Alvin Kamara's looked good since he's been back.
He has, and I'm going lower. Yeah, and look, I love Alvin Kamara. I think he's great. Where Alvin Kamara really adds his values in the receiving game. Jaguars have a pretty good defense too, by the way. For the record, just because I'm taking lower than 52.5 does not mean I think Alvin Kamara is going to have a bad game. He could still have a running back 1 week, not the running back 1, but a running back 1 week and rush for less than 52.5 yards.
Again, catch 13 passes again, he could.
He certainly could. Nate, what about you?
I'm going to go higher. Mike, because in the last 2 weeks, he's had 68 rush yards. Last week, 80 the week before that. His first week back, he had 51 on 11 rushes. I think, even with the Jaguars defense being pretty good, I think the Saints are choosing to run their offense through Alvin Kamara recently since he's been back. 19 rush attempts last week, 22 the week before that. So they're obviously giving him plenty of rush attempts. Doesn't take too many. If he has 15 to 20 rush attempts, I think he can get higher than 52.5 rushing yards. So I'm going higher here, Mike.
I know it's only 3 games, but also career low in rushing yards per attempt, 3.8 yards per carry currently. Gonna have to do better than that.
We'll see. Hey, I can make up some ground here.
You very well could. We could be tied after this week.
Ooh.
But we won't be. All right, that's going to do it for us. We will see you next time, everybody.